Sarah Chen rubbed her tired eyes as she watched the security monitors. Another normal night shift on Kepler 7 station. Hundreds of aliens walked through the corridors outside her office. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like walking plants. After 2 years working here, she barely noticed how strange they all looked anymore. The coffee in her cup had gone cold an hour ago. She took a sip anyway and made a face. Station coffee always tasted like recycled water, because it basically was. Everything on a space station got recycled. Sarah had learned not to think too hard about that. A red light flashed on her console. Section 7, the Vraxian district. Her stomach dropped. The Vraxians were the kind of aliens that made everyone nervous. They stood 9 feet tall with black scales that looked like armor. Their mouths had too many teeth arranged in 3 rows. Their claws could tear through steel doors. Even other predator species gave them plenty of space. Sarah grabbed her stun baton and headed out. Station regulations said she needed backup before entering the Vraxian district, but the closest security officer was 20 minutes away. Whatever was happening might not wait 20 minutes. The corridors grew darker as she approached Section 7. Vraxians liked it dim. Their eyes worked better in low light. Sarah turned on her helmet light and kept walking. Her heart beat faster with each step. She had never actually met a Vraxian face to face. She had only seen them on monitors. The sound hit her first, high-pitched chirping almost like birds. But these were not birds. Sarah rounded the corner and froze. 3 small Vraxians, each about 4 feet tall, were pressed against a wall. They were children. Their scales were lighter than adults, more gray than black. Above them, 2 security drones hovered and beeped with red warning lights. The drones had their weapons armed. Sarah's training kicked in. She accessed the drone controls through her wrist computer. The screen showed an error message. The drones were malfunctioning. They had identified the Vraxian cubs as threats and were preparing to fire. In 30 seconds, they would shoot 3 children. She did not think. She just moved. Sarah ran forward and placed herself between the drones and the cubs. She pulled out her override key, a physical device for emergencies exactly like this. She jammed it into the nearest drone's port and twisted hard. The drone's lights went from red to yellow to dark. It dropped to the floor with a heavy thunk. The second drone turned toward her. Sarah dove sideways as an energy blast scorched the wall where she had been standing. The Vraxian cubs screamed. Sarah rolled and came up running. She jumped and grabbed the second drone, yanking it down. Her fingers found the emergency shutdown panel and pressed hard. The drone died. Silence filled the corridor. Sarah's ears rang from the energy blast. She was breathing hard. Slowly, she turned toward the cubs. They stared at her with huge golden eyes. Up close, they looked almost fragile. Their scales had not fully hardened yet. She could see them trembling. "It's okay," Sarah said softly. She knew they probably did not understand English, but tone mattered. "You're safe now." One of the cubs took a step forward. Then another. It reached out with one clawed hand and touched Sarah's leg. The touch was gentle, careful. The cub made a soft chirping sound. The other 2 cubs moved forward and pressed against her. They were warm. Their scales felt smooth under her hands. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Sarah looked up. A massive Vraxian adult stood at the end of the hall. This one had to be 10 feet tall, with scales so black they seemed to absorb light. Scars crossed its face and arms. This was a warrior. This was death walking toward her. Sarah stood very still. The cubs pressed closer to her legs. She kept her hands visible and empty. Running would be stupid. Fighting would be suicide. She waited. The adult Vraxian stopped 5 feet away. It looked at the dead drones. It looked at Sarah. It looked at the cubs pressed against her. Its golden eyes were unreadable. When it spoke, a translator device on its chest converted the words to English. "You saved my offspring." The voice was deep and rough, like gravel grinding together. "The drones malfunctioned," Sarah said. Her voice only shook a little. "I shut them down. You placed yourself between weapons and Vraxian cubs." The adult tilted its head. "Why?" "They're children," Sarah said simply. "Children don't deserve to die because of broken machines." The Vraxian made a sound. It took Sarah a moment to realize the alien was laughing. "I am Ambassador Krellix. These are my offspring. You have done something I have never seen in my 60 years. What's that? Made them trust an alien." Krellix gestured at the cubs. Vraxian young only bond with pack leaders, with strong protectors. They sense weakness. They sense fear. "You showed neither," Sarah looked down. The 3 cubs were still pressed against her. One was chirping softly. Another had wrapped its tail around her ankle. I was terrified, she admitted. Fear and weakness are not the same thing, Krellick said. You acted despite fear. That is strength. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. What is your name, human? Security Officer Sarah Chen. Officer Chen, my offspring have chosen you as pack. This is unexpected. Krellick paused. This is also problematic. Before Sarah could ask what that meant, more footsteps arrived. Commander Yilthos appeared, flanked by 6 security officers. The commander was a Quillen, an insectoid species with 4 arms and compound eyes. His translator made his voice sound perpetually annoyed. Ambassador Krellick, I apologize for the drone malfunction. We will investigate immediately. Yilthos looked at Sarah. Officer Chen, step away from the Vraxian civilians. I would not recommend that, Krellick said calmly. My offspring have imprinted. Separation will cause them distress. Imprinted? Yilthos's antennae twitched rapidly. On a human? That's impossible. Clearly not, Krellick gestured. Command them to release her. See what happens. Yilthos chittered nervously. Officer Chen, you are dismissed. Return to your post, Sarah tried to step back. The cubs made loud, distressed sounds. Their claws dug into her uniform. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm. They were not letting go. One of them wrapped both arms around her leg and refused to move. This is a diplomatic nightmare, Yilthos muttered. He looked at Krellick. What do you suggest, Ambassador? The human has saved my offspring. By Vraxian law, she has proven herself pack. The cubs will not leave her side now. Fighting this will only traumatize them. Krellick's expression was unreadable. I propose Officer Chen take temporary guardianship while we study this phenomenon. Absolutely not. Yilthos's voice rose. Vraxians are classified as dangerous predators. No human has ever done many things, Krellick interrupted, until they do them. Officer Chen has already survived close contact with my offspring. She has survived close contact with me. I trust her more than I trust your malfunctioning drones. Sarah wanted to say something. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to explain that she was just a security officer who worked night shifts and drank terrible coffee. She was not qualified to raise alien predator children, but the cubs were looking up at her with those huge golden eyes, and she remembered how scared they had been. I'll do it, she heard herself say, temporarily, until we figure this out. Yilthos made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. This station's insurance premiums just tripled. He pointed at Sarah. You are responsible for any incidents, any damage, any injuries. Understood, Commander. Krellick placed one massive hand on Sarah's shoulder. His claws were each as long as her fingers. Perhaps the Council was right to fear your kind, Officer Chen. You have no idea what you have just become part of. Sarah wanted to ask what that meant. But Krellick was already walking away. The cubs stayed pressed against her. One of them chirped and looked up at her expectantly. Sarah had no idea what it wanted. She had no idea what she was supposed to do. She was a human security officer on a space station, and she had just become the guardian of 3 predator aliens that the galaxy feared. Her shift still had 4 hours left. She looked at the cubs. They looked at her. One of them burped. This is going to be interesting, Sarah muttered. She had no idea how right she was. 3 days passed. 3 very long days. Sarah learned many things about Vraxian cubs. They ate constantly. They slept in a pile on her apartment floor. They followed her everywhere. And they grew fast. Already they seemed bigger than when she first met them. She also learned their names. The largest was Krix. He had a scar on his left shoulder and liked to chirp loudly when he wanted attention. The middle one was Vela. She was the most curious, always touching things and sniffing everything. The smallest was Thorn. He was quiet but watched everything with intelligent eyes. Right now, Sarah was getting ready for work. The cubs watched her put on her uniform. Krix chirped and bumped his head against her hand. Vela was investigating her boots. Thorn sat perfectly still, just observing. You 3 need to stay here today, Sarah said. She knew they did not understand all her words, but they were learning fast. I have to go to the deep archive. It's boring. Just paperwork. Krix made a sad sound. All 3 cubs looked at her with those big golden eyes. Sarah felt her resolve weakening. But she had to be firm. The deep archive was restricted. Only authorized personnel allowed. Taking 3 Vraxian cubs there would be against at least 15 different regulations. I'll be back in a few hours. Ambassador Krelix will check on you. Sarah grabbed her datapad and headed for the door. The cubs followed. No, stay, they sat. Their tails swished across the floor. Sarah felt guilty, but rules were rules. She stepped into the corridor and let the door close. Through the small window, she saw 3 sad alien faces staring at her. Her heart twisted, but she walked away. The deep archive was in the oldest part of Kepler-7. This section had been built by the architects, a species that disappeared thousands of years ago. Nobody knew much about them. They left behind strange technology that still worked, but nobody really understood. The station used these old sections for storage and record keeping. Sarah took the elevator down. 10 levels, 20, 30. The doors opened to a dim corridor. The walls here were different from the rest of the station. They had a faint blue glow and felt warm to the touch. Architect material. Sarah had been down here a few times for clearance updates. It always felt strange, like the walls were watching her. She walked to the security checkpoint. A scanner stood there, a black pillar covered in symbols that shifted and changed. Sarah had to update her biometric data every 6 months. It was boring but necessary. She placed her hand on the scanner's surface. It felt warm and slightly sticky. Something bumped into her leg. Sarah looked down. Crick stared up at her. Behind him were Vela and Thorn. All 3 cubs chirped happily. How did you? Sarah started to ask, but the cubs must have followed her, must have slipped into the elevator before the doors closed. She had been distracted and had not noticed 3 4-foot-tall predators sneaking behind her. This is bad, Sarah muttered. This is really bad. We need to. The scanner exploded with light, not the normal soft blue glow. This was bright white, almost blinding. Sarah jerked her hand back, but the light followed. It spread across her skin, across the cubs pressed against her legs. Symbols appeared in the air, hanging like holographic fireflies. Text in a language Sarah had never seen scrolled past faster than she could read. An alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed. Heavy blast doors slammed down at both ends of the corridor. Sarah grabbed the cubs and pulled them close. Metal screeched against metal as the doors locked. They were trapped. Security breach in deep archive section, a mechanical voice announced. Lockdown initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately. We're already locked in, Sarah shouted at the ceiling. Her voice echoed. The cubs pressed against her, chirping nervously. She tried to access her wrist computer, no signal. The architect walls blocked everything when they went into lockdown mode. The scanner was still displaying symbols. Sarah looked closer. The station's translation software was struggling, showing partial words that flickered and changed. Recognized. Something. Apex tier. Bonding. Protocol. More text appeared. This time the translator caught more words. Subjects. Vraxian juveniles. Pattern, Krell bloodline. Sarah's blood went cold. The scanner was identifying the cubs, but how? This technology was thousands of years old. Vraxians had only reached space a few centuries ago. More text scrolled past. Classification. Restricted assets. Treaty compliance detected. What treaty? Sarah whispered. But the scanner was not done. Human designation, primacy level guardian. That made no sense. Sarah was human. Humans had only joined the galactic community 30 years ago. How could ancient architect technology have a designation for humans? The cubs were growling now. Not at Sarah, but at something else. She looked around. Doors were opening in the walls. Doors she had never seen before. Behind them was darkness and the smell of very old air. Storage vaults. Archive chambers. Places that had been sealed for thousands of years. Sarah's training said stay put and wait for rescue. But her instinct said something important was happening. Something that might explain why the architect scanner recognized her and the cubs. Stay close, she told the cubs. They pressed against her legs as she walked toward the nearest open door. Her helmet light cut through the darkness. Inside was a chamber filled with crystalline data storage units. They glowed softly, waking up after centuries of sleep. Sarah touched one. It lit up bright blue. A holographic display appeared, showing text in the same strange language. But this time the translator worked better. Maybe because the system was fully active now. Archive Index Species Category Emergent Predators, Subsection, Behavioral Moderation Requirements. Sarah scrolled through the data. Her hands were shaking. What she was reading could not be real. But the files were there. Thousands of them, all about predator species across the galaxy, how they grew too aggressive, how they destroyed themselves or others, how the architects had tried to solve this problem. She found a file marked Compliance Enforcers. She opened it. Project Goal: engineer species capable of psychological regulation of Category 5 predators. Candidate species humans. Status: development in progress. Location: planet designated Earth Sol system. Sarah sat down hard. The cubs gathered around her. Bella put her head in Sarah's lap. Crix made soft, comforting sounds. Thorn just watched with those intelligent eyes. They made us, Sarah whispered. The architects made humans. They made us to control species like the Vraxians, but that was not quite right. She kept reading. The files showed that the architects had not created humans from nothing. They had found early humans on Earth. They had guided human evolution, made small changes, pushed humanity in a specific direction, made them into something that could bond with predators, something that predators would instinctively trust and follow. Another file opened automatically. This one showed a treaty, a document signed by the architects and dozens of other species. Sarah recognized the Vraxian symbols. The date was almost 3,000 years ago. The treaty was simple. The architects would develop a species to help moderate aggressive predator behavior. In exchange, those predator species would agree to peace until the new species was ready. They would wait. They would control themselves. And when the time came, they would accept the help they needed. The treaty called humans shepherds. It said humans would emerge naturally and enter the galactic community when they were ready. It said predator species would recognize them instinctively, would trust them, would bond with them. It said the cubs of predator species would imprint on humans like they imprinted on their strongest pack leaders. Sarah looked at Crix, Vela, and Thorn. They were not following her because of some accident. They were following her because 3,000 years ago, their ancestors had agreed to this. Because humans and Vraxians were supposed to work together. Because Sarah was exactly what the cubs needed, and they were exactly what she was meant to protect. "This is insane," Sarah said, but the cubs just chirped at her. They did not care about ancient treaties or architect plans. They cared that she had saved them, that she kept them safe, that she was Pack. A new hologram appeared. This one showed an architect. At least Sarah thought it was an architect. The being was tall and thin, with too many joints in its arms and legs. Its head was smooth and featureless except for 3 eyes arranged in a triangle. The recording played. The translator struggled with the ancient language, but Sarah understood enough. "If you are seeing this, treaty is activated. Predator species has accepted human guardian. Protocol successful." The architect's voice was strange, like music and static mixed together. "Humans are not our creation. They are our hope. The galaxy needs shepherds, needs balance, needs beings who understand both predator and prey." The recording flickered. "We are leaving now. Our time is ending. But humans will continue. They will bridge the gap. They will prevent the wars. They will make species like Vraxians into something beautiful instead of something terrifying." The hologram faded. Sarah sat in the darkness with 3 alien cubs pressed against her. Above them, she could hear shouting. Security forces were trying to break through the blast doors. Commander Yilthos would be having a breakdown. Ambassador Krelix would be demanding answers. And Sarah had answers now. She had answers that would change everything. The cubs looked up at her. Crix chirped a question. Sarah managed to smile. The station's AI had sent everything to the Galactic Council. Sarah sat in her small apartment and watched the news feeds on dozens of screens. Her face was everywhere. So were images of the cubs. Headlines scrolled past in 100 different languages. Human officer discovers ancient conspiracy. Are humans galactic control tools? Predator species demand answers about treaty. Council in emergency session. Crix, Vela, and Thorn slept in a pile on her floor. They did not care about politics or councils or treaties. They had eaten dinner and now they were tired. Sarah wished she could be that simple, but her wrist computer kept buzzing with messages. Some supported her. Many did not. A knock on her door made the cubs' heads pop up. Crix growled softly. Sarah checked her door camera. Ambassador Krelix stood outside alone. She opened the door. The massive Vraxian had to duck to enter her apartment. The cubs immediately ran to him, chirping and bouncing around his legs. Krelix made a rumbling sound that might have been affection. He touched each cub gently with one clawed hand. "Officer Chen, we need to talk." "I figured." Sarah gestured to her small couch. Krelix looked at it and remained standing. He would probably break it if he sat down. Sarah stayed standing too. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause a diplomatic incident. You caused much more than that." Krelix's golden eyes studied her. "You revealed a truth my people have kept hidden for 3,000 years. Sarah waited. The cubs settled down, watching both adults carefully. "The Vraxian expansion nearly destroyed the galaxy 2 millennia ago," Krelix said quietly. "We were unstoppable. We conquered everything. We could not control our own aggression. Every generation became more violent than the last. We were burning ourselves out, taking everyone else with us." He paused. "The architects came to us with an offer. They had found a species that could help us, a species that our young would bond with, that our warriors would trust, that could teach us to be better than our worst instincts. Humans," Sarah said. "Yes. But humans were not ready yet. Your species was still primitive, still developing. The architects asked us to wait, to control ourselves for a few thousand years, to prepare for the shepherds who would come." Krelix's tail swished. Most of us thought it was ridiculous. A few believed. My family line was one of those few. We kept the treaty secret. We waited. "Why secret?" Sarah asked. "Because the galaxy would panic. Because other species would fear what humans could do. Because knowledge of the treaty would poison everything before humans were ready." Krelix looked at the cubs. "When I saw my offspring bond with you, I knew the treaty was real. I knew the time had come. But I thought we would have more time to prepare, to ease the galaxy into understanding." "I'm sorry," Sarah said again. "Do not be. Truth does not wait for convenience." Krelix moved to the window. Outside, ships moved through space around the station. "The Council is debating now. Half want to quarantine Earth, half want to exploit this. They see humans as tools to control species they fear." Sarah's stomach twisted. "What do you mean exploit?" "They are proposing a handler program, taking young humans and training them to bond with predator species. Using them to manage populations the Council finds problematic, making humans into weapons of control." "That's slavery," Sarah said flatly. "They do not see it that way. They will offer money, prestige, status. They will make it sound like an honor. But yes, it is slavery dressed in diplomatic language." Krelix turned back to her. "There is another option." "What?" "Vraxian pack law. If you formally bond with my offspring, they become your legal responsibility. You become their pack mother, and a pack mother cannot be conscripted or forced into service without declaring war on the entire Vraxian hegemony." Krelix's expression was unreadable. "The Council will not risk war with us. Not when we control a third of known space." Sarah looked at the cubs. They looked back at her. Crix chirped softly. Vela's tail twitched. Thorn just watched with those intelligent eyes. "What does it mean? Being a pack mother? It means they are yours. You are theirs. You protect them. You guide them. You are responsible for their actions until they reach maturity." Krelix paused. "It also means you are Vraxian by law. You will have rights and protections, but also duties. You cannot abandon pack. You cannot betray pack. Pack is everything." "How long until they're mature? In Vraxian years?" 8 cycles. "In human years?" Krelix tilted his head. "About 15 years, 15 years. Sarah was 28 now. She would be 43 when the cubs were grown. 15 years of her life dedicated to 3 alien children. 15 years of being tied to Vraxian law and culture. 15 years of being something between human and alien. Or she could refuse. She could let the Council take her. Let them train her to bond with predators she did not choose. Let them use her as a tool to control species they feared, until they decided she was too dangerous and locked her away." Sarah thought about the first night. The cubs pressed against the wall. The drones ready to fire. The fear in their eyes. She thought about the last 3 days. Crix chirping for attention. Vela investigating everything. Thorn watching and learning. She thought about how they curled up against her when they slept. How safe they felt. "What do I have to do?" Sarah asked. Krelix reached into a pouch on his belt. He pulled out a small device. "This applies the pack sigils. They will be permanent. Visible proof that you are pack mother to the Krell bloodline. Where? Traditionally the forearm. So all can see." Sarah rolled up her sleeve. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "Do it. Krellis placed the device against her skin. It felt cold at first, then hot. Pain spread up her arm. Sarah gritted her teeth and did not make a sound. The cubs watched anxiously. The pain lasted maybe 30 seconds. When Krellis removed the device, dark blue marks covered Sarah's forearm. They looked like tribal tattoos, swirling patterns that moved slightly when she shifted her arm. It is done. Krellis placed one massive hand on Sarah's shoulder. You are Pack Mother now. By Vraxian law, my offspring are yours. You speak for them. You decide for them, and they will follow you until you release them or death separates you. The cubs seemed to sense something had changed. They rushed to Sarah and pressed against her legs. Krix made a sound she had not heard before, a deep rumbling purr. Vela licked Sarah's hand with a rough tongue. Thorn bumped his head against her knee. Sarah's wrist computer buzzed. A message from Commander Yilthos. Officer Chen, report to council chambers immediately. Galactic representatives are here. I have to go, Sarah said. We will come, Krellis said. This concerns all of us. The council chambers were packed. Representatives from 50 species filled the room. Sarah recognized some. The Quillen delegation with their forearms and compound eyes. The crystalline Sherrix who communicated through light pulses. The massive Kralix with their armored hides. And dozens more. All staring at her. The cubs stayed close. Krix and Vela pressed against her legs. Thorn walked slightly ahead like a tiny guard. Krellis stood behind them all, a silent, threatening presence. The council speaker was a Quillen named Zexthor. His translator made his voice boom. Officer Sarah Chen, you have uncovered information that affects the entire galactic community. The council has questions. I'll answer what I can, Sarah said. Did you know about the treaty before entering the Deep Archive? No. Did Ambassador Krellis inform you about Vraxian history with the architects? Not until after. Zexthor's antennae twitched. The council has reviewed the archive files. We have confirmed their authenticity. The treaty is real. The architect plan is real. Humans were designed to bond with predator species. He paused. The council has decided to implement a handler program. Select humans will be recruited to serve as stabilizing influences for problematic species. Angry sounds filled the chamber. The Vraxian delegation hissed. The Kralix representatives roared. Several other predator species made threatening noises. The cubs have bonded with Officer Chen naturally, a Vraxian delegate said. You cannot force these relationships. We will not force, Zexthor replied smoothly. We will recruit. We will train. We will ensure humans understand their role in galactic society. Their role as your tools. Krellick's voice cut through the noise. You speak of recruitment but mean conscription. You speak of training but mean control. The Council fears predator species. You see humans as weapons to keep us weak and divided. That's not silence. Krellick stepped forward. The entire chamber went quiet. Officer Chen is pack mother to my offspring. By Vraxian law, she is protected. The hegemony will consider any attempt to conscript her as an act of war. Zexthor's translator made a sound like static. Ambassador, the Council respects Vraxian law. But other humans will choose their own paths, Sarah interrupted. Both Krellick and Zexthor stared at her. The cubs pressed closer. Sarah's voice did not shake. I'm human. I don't speak for my entire species, but I know humans. We don't like being used. We don't like being controlled. Some humans might want to bond with predator species. Some might not. That's their choice, not yours. The galaxy needs stability, Zexthor said. The galaxy needs freedom, Sarah replied. Stability built on slavery isn't stability. It's oppression. Angry buzzing filled the chamber. Species argued with each. 6 months changed everything. Sarah barely recognized her life anymore. The Handler program had launched with much fanfare and even more controversy. 20 humans had volunteered. They came from Earth eager to make history and earn the huge salaries the Council offered. They were trained by xenopsychologists and given assignments with different predator species. It was a disaster. Sarah watched the news feeds in her apartment. Krix, Vela, and Thorn were bigger now. Each stood almost 5 feet tall. Their scales had darkened to charcoal gray. They were adolescents growing into their adult bodies. They still followed Sarah everywhere, but now they could actually help with things. Krix was strong enough to carry her equipment. Vela had learned to read basic English. Thorn could operate simple computers. The screen showed another incident. A human handler named Marcus had been working with a young Kralix. The Kralix had attacked him yesterday. Marcus was in medical care now. The Kralix had been sedated and locked up. The news reporter asked questions about handler program safety. Third incident this month, Vela said. Her English was getting better every day. Why does it keep happening? Because they're doing it wrong, Sarah said quietly. Commander Yilthos had visited her last week. He looked exhausted. The handler program was his responsibility, and it was failing. He had asked Sarah for advice. She had told him the truth. The handlers were treating the predators like pets or tools. They were not building real relationships. They were following protocols and procedures, not listening to what the predators actually needed. Yilthos had not liked that answer, but he had not argued with it either. Sarah's wrist computer buzzed. A message from Station AI. Automated security report, Handler Davidson requesting immediate assistance. Location, Cargo Bay 7, situation, hostile predator encounter. Stay here, Sarah told the cubs. They chirped in protest. I mean it. This is dangerous. But when she reached the door, all 3 cubs were right behind her. Crix growled softly. Vela's tail lashed. Thorn just stared at her with those intelligent eyes that saw too much. Fine, Sarah sighed. But stay behind me, and do exactly what I say. They ran through the corridors. Other security officers were heading to Cargo Bay 7, too. Sarah heard screaming before she saw what was happening. The cargo bay doors were bent. Something large and angry was inside. Through the damaged doors, Sarah saw Handler Davidson pressed against a wall. A Kralix stood in front of him. This Kralix was fully grown, maybe 12 feet tall, covered in armored plates that looked like stone. Its claws were the size of knives. Kralix were even more dangerous than Vraxians. They were stronger, tougher, and had virtually no fear. Security officers aimed weapons at the Kralix. Commander Yilthos shouted orders through his communicator. Nobody was shooting yet, but they would soon. Protocol said to neutralize hostile predators before they could harm civilians. Wait. Sarah pushed through the security line. Don't shoot. Officer Chen, stand down. Yilthos snapped. That Kralix is terrified, Sarah said. She could see it now. The way it held its body. The way its eyes moved. It was not attacking. It was protecting itself. Look at it. Really look. The Kralix's armored hide had marks on it. Burns from shock prods. Bruises from impact weapons. Someone had been hurting this predator. Training it. Breaking it. Handler Davidson, Sarah called out. What did you do? Nothing. I was just following training protocols. Davidson's voice shook with fear. Shock conditioning when it refused commands. Isolation when it acted aggressive. Standard handler procedures. You tortured it, Sarah said flatly. I was teaching it control. The Kralix roared. The sound shook the cargo bay. Security officers tightened their grips on weapons. One wrong move and they would shoot. The Kralix would die. Davidson would probably die too. Everything would fall apart. Sarah made a decision. She walked forward. Yilthos shouted at her to stop. The security officers told her to get back. The cubs chirped anxiously. But Sarah kept walking until she stood between the Kralix and everyone else. The Kralix stared down at her. It was massive this close. It could kill her with one swipe. Sarah raised her hand slowly, showing she held no weapons. I'm sorry, she said. She knew the Kralix probably did not understand English. But maybe it would understand tone, intention. I'm sorry they hurt you. I'm sorry they treated you like a thing instead of a person. The Kralix's eyes were orange like fire. They watched Sarah carefully. You didn't want to hurt anyone, Sarah continued. You just wanted them to stop hurting you. I understand. I would be angry too. Behind her, she heard the cubs moving. Crix, Vela, and Thorn walked past her and stood in a line between her and the Kralix. They were so much smaller. The Kralix could smash them easily, but they stood their ground. Protecting her, the Kralix made a sound, not a roar, something softer. Its massive head tilted, looking at the cubs. Crix chirped at it. Not aggressively, more like a greeting. Vela's tail swished gently. Thorn just sat down and waited. They're showing you respect, Sarah said. They're showing you that we're not a threat. That we understand. The Kralix lowered itself to the ground, slowly, carefully. It was still bigger than all of them, but it was making itself less threatening. Sarah's heart pounded. She was guessing. She was hoping. She was betting all their lives on her instinct. She walked forward and placed her hand on the Kralix's armored head. It was warm under her palm. The creature's breathing slowed. Its eyes closed for a moment. "You need a real home," Sarah said softly. "Not a handler who hurts you. A partner who respects you." The Kralix opened its eyes. It looked at Sarah for a long moment. Then it spoke. Its translator was old and damaged, but the words came through. "You are small, but you understand." "I'm trying to," Sarah said. "The others, they hurt what they fear." The Kralix's voice was deep and rumbling. "You do not fear me." "I'm terrified," Sarah admitted. "But fear and respect aren't opposites. I'm scared because I know how strong you are, but I respect you because I know you didn't want any of this." The Kralix made that soft sound again. "The small ones." "Your pack?" "Yes, they would fight me for you. They are brave. Foolish, but brave." The Kralix shifted its weight. "I had a handler. He said he would teach me," he lied. "He only knew pain and fear." "Not all humans are like him," Sarah said. "Some of us want to help, want to be partners. But the program is broken. It's treating predators like threats to be controlled instead of people to be understood." Security officers were moving closer. Yilthos spoke quietly into his communicator. Sarah knew they were planning something. She raised her voice. "Commander, this Kralix is surrendering peacefully. I'm taking responsibility for it. You cannot," Yilthos shouted back. "You already have 3 dependents. And that creature attacked a handler. That creature defended itself from abuse." Sarah turned to face the commander. The cubs moved with her. The Kralix stayed low to the ground. "Handler Davidson violated every principle of ethical treatment. I want a full investigation, and I want this Kralix given proper sanctuary." "Impossible." "Then I quit." Sarah pulled off her security badge. She dropped it on the floor. "I'll take the Kralix off station myself. I'll find somewhere safe for it, but I won't stand here and watch you kill it for refusing to be tortured." The cargo bay went silent. Everyone stared at Sarah, a human security officer who had just quit her job. 3 Vraxian adolescents who stood ready to fight, and a massive Kralix who had chosen surrender over violence. Kralix appeared at the cargo bay entrance. The crowd parted for him. He walked to Sarah and looked at the scene. Then he started laughing, that deep grinding sound that still made everyone nervous. "Pack mother," he said with something like pride. "You cannot help yourself, can you? Collecting broken predators like some humans collect lost pets." "This isn't funny," Sarah said. "It is extremely funny, and also brilliant." Kralix looked at Yilthos. "The Vraxian hegemony will provide sanctuary for this Kralix. We will also investigate handler program protocols. If we find evidence of systematic abuse, we will demand the entire program be suspended." "You have no authority," Yilthos began. "We have every authority. The treaty gives us oversight of any program involving predator-human bonding." "Did you think we would simply allow the Council to abuse our fellow predators?" Kralix's voice dropped to a dangerous rumble. "We have been watching, Commander. We have been waiting to see if the Council learned anything from Officer Chen's example. Clearly you have not." More Vraxian delegates arrived. So did Kralix representatives. Other predator species sent observers. Within an hour, the cargo bay was filled with angry predators demanding answers. Commander Yilthos looked like he wanted to disappear. Sarah sat on a cargo crate with the cubs around her. The Kralix had not moved. It stayed near them, like it finally felt safe. Sarah learned its name was Greth. It had volunteered for the handler program, hoping to learn to control its aggressive instincts. Instead, Davidson had treated it like a dangerous animal that needed to be broken. "I should have researched more carefully," Greth said quietly. "I wanted to be better, to prove that Kralix could change, but I only found more pain." "It's not your fault," Sarah said. "The program is broken. It's built on fear and control. That never works." "What will I do now?" Greth asked. "I cannot go back to the Kralix Dominion. They will see me as weak, failed." Sarah looked at the cubs. They looked back at her. Crix chirped a question year after the cubs first followed Sarah into the deep archive. Kepler 7 looked different. The station had become something unexpected. A place where predators and prey walked together without fear, where humans worked alongside species that had once terrified them, where the impossible had become normal. Sarah walked through the main promenade with her pack. Crix, Vela, and Thorn were nearly full-grown now. Each stood over 7 feet tall with scales as black as space. They moved with grace and power, but their golden eyes were gentle when they looked at the smaller species around them. Greth walked slightly behind them, the massive Kralix drawing stares but no longer causing panic. A small Quillen child ran up to Thorn and offered him a sweet pastry. Thorn accepted it carefully with his claws and chirped his thanks. The child's parents watched nervously but did not intervene. 6 months ago, they would have grabbed their child and run. Now they just smiled and nodded at Sarah. Progress, Vela said in perfect English. She had become the most verbal of the 3 cubs. Small steps. Small steps lead to big journeys, Sarah replied. It was something Krelix had taught her. The ambassador had become her mentor and friend over the past year. He guided her through Vraxian culture and law. He helped her understand what it meant to be Pack Mother. They reached the new Interspecies Relations Center. The council had finally agreed to Sarah's proposal. Instead of the handler program, they created something better, a place where humans and predators could meet voluntarily, where relationships built on respect rather than control, where both species chose to work together. Sarah was the director now. It still felt strange. She had been a night shift security officer. Now she had an office and a staff and responsibilities that affected the entire galaxy, but she could not refuse. Too many people were watching. Too many species wanted to see if humans really could be what the architects had hoped. Inside the center, Sarah found chaos. 20 different species filled the meeting hall. Humans and aliens talked in small groups. Some conversations looked friendly. Others looked tense. This was the first major gathering since the center opened. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to see if this new approach would work. Director Chen, a young human woman, approached. Her name was Maya, and she was one of the few handlers from the original program who wanted to try again. The Sherix delegate is asking about bonding protocols. I'm not sure how to answer. What specifically do they want to know? Sarah asked. Whether bonding is mandatory for interspecies cooperation. Sarah walked to where a crystalline Sherix waited. The being was beautiful, made of what looked like living glass that refracted light into rainbows. Sherix communicated through light pulses that required a special translator. Ambassador, Sarah said, you have questions about bonding? The Sherix's lights pulsed. The translator spoke in a musical voice. The Sherix are not predators. We do not require human moderators. But we wonder if this bonding extends beyond predators. Can humans form meaningful partnerships with any species? I think so, Sarah said. The architects focused on predators because that's where the immediate danger was. But humans bond with all kinds of beings. We form friendships with other species naturally. The Vraxian cubs bonded with me because of ancient programming. But what we have now is real. It's based on trust and affection. Then humans are not just predator shepherds. They are bridge builders. Maybe that's what we were supposed to be all along, Sarah said. Not controllers, not handlers, just beings who can understand both sides, who can help species communicate when fear gets in the way. The Sherix's lights pulsed in what might have been approval. The Sherix would be interested in cultural exchange programs with Earth, not bonding, partnership. We can arrange that, Sarah said. Throughout the day, similar conversations happened. Not every species wanted human partners. That was fine. Some just wanted to understand humans better. Others wanted to trade with Earth. A few wanted nothing to do with humanity at all. That was their choice, but the predator species kept coming. Vraxians brought their cubs to meet human volunteers. Kralix requested ambassadors to their homeworlds. 7 other predator species asked about establishing exchange programs. All of them remembered the old treaty. All of them had been waiting for this. Sarah's wrist computer buzzed. A priority message from Earth. She stepped into her office to take the call. Crix, Vela, and Thorn followed like shadows. They always knew when something was important. The screen showed an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Director Amara Okafor of Earth's Interstellar Relations Division. Sarah, I wanted to inform you personally. The Galactic Council has issued their final report on the Handler Program investigation. And they found systematic flaws in the program design. They acknowledge that forced bonding and coercive training methods were counterproductive. They are formally apologizing to all affected parties. Okafor paused. They are also offering you a position on the council itself. As the first human counselor, Sarah sat down hard. The cubs made concerned sounds. They want me on the council? They recognize that humanity needs representation, that the predator species need an advocate, and that you have proven yourself exceptional in both roles. Okafor smiled slightly. It would mean leaving Kepler-7, coming to the Council's home station, taking on responsibilities that would reshape galactic politics. What if I say no? Then they will ask someone else. But Sarah, you started this. You showed the galaxy what humans really are. You proved that the architects were right to have faith in us. Do you really want to step away now? Sarah looked at her pack. Crix was cleaning Vela's scales with his claws, a grooming behavior that showed affection. Thorn sat perfectly still, watching and listening. These 3 cubs had changed her life, had changed everything. Would my pack come with me? Sarah asked. The council says your family is your own business. If Crix, Vela, and Thorn want to come, they are welcome. Sarah looked at the cubs. What do you think? We go where Pack Mother goes, Crix said. His voice was deep now, almost as deep as his father's. That is pack law. But is it what you want? Sarah pressed. You're almost adults now. You could stay with your father, could learn to be ambassadors or warriors. You don't have to follow me forever. The 3 looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Thorn spoke. He rarely talked, so when he did, everyone listened. You saved us, he said quietly. Not just from drones. You saved us from becoming what everyone feared. You showed us how to be strong and gentle, how to be Vraxian without being terrible, how to be better than our worst instincts. He moved closer to Sarah. We do not follow you because of pack law or ancient treaties. We follow you because you are Pack Mother. Because we love you. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She reached out and touched each of their heads. They pressed against her hands like they had a year ago when they were tiny cubs, except now they were massive predators that could tear through steel. And they were the gentlest beings she had ever known. All right, Sarah told Director Okafor. I'll do it. But I have conditions. Name them. First, my pack comes with me. All of them. Including Greth. Sarah glanced toward the door where the Kralix was waiting outside. Second, the Council agrees to permanent oversight by predator species representatives on any programs involving human-predator relations. No more decisions about us without us. Third, Earth remains independent. Humans choose whether to participate in any Council programs. No conscription. No pressure. Free choice. Okafor consulted with someone off-screen. Then she nodded. The Council agrees to all conditions. Congratulations, Counselor Chen. You just became one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The call ended. Sarah sat in her office looking at her hands. The pack sigils on her arm had faded slightly over the year, but they were still visible. Permanent proof of what she had become. A knock on her door. Krelix entered without waiting for permission. That was typical for him. He looked at Sarah and smiled, showing all those teeth. You said yes. How did you know? Because you cannot help yourself. You see beings in need and you help them. You see systems that are broken and you fix them. You are exactly what the architects hoped for. Krellis sat in a chair that creaked under his weight. My offspring have chosen well. Their pack mother will change the galaxy. I'm just one person, Sarah said. One person who stood between my cubs and death. One person who revealed a 3,000-year-old secret. One person who destroyed the Handler program and created something better. One person who showed the galaxy that humans are not weapons or tools, but partners and friends. Krelix leaned forward. Never underestimate what one person can do, Pack Mother. Sarah stood up. I should tell everyone. The staff. The volunteers. They deserve to know, they already know. The news is spreading. There are celebrations beginning in the Predator districts. There is panic beginning in some council chambers. You have made friends and enemies, Sarah Chen. The path ahead will not be easy. Was it ever? Sarah asked. No. But that has never stopped you before. 3 months later, Sarah stood in the deep archive again. The architect scanner was still there, still glowing softly. The blast doors had been repaired. The archived FI